Hello, in this video, I'll be showing you the implementation steps in Maple GRC for implementing CyberSecure Canada. So, as you can see on the screen here, I have this company called Queensville Corp. And so the first step you want to do in going through the implementation is just setting up your company's profile. So we have here the name of the company, address, the size, so that's number of employees, the objectives of the company, uh, company operation. Um, Also important is the information technology budget. So I don't have it here, but it's something you should really fill in. Um, yeah, and so just filling out this page is step number one. Step number two in the implementation would be to go down to files. So the first step here is you go to organization and then profile, and then you go down to files. And so we have here, this page is for uploading your company's files. So under financials, and I have, documents about the company's annual report and other files that just go into detail about the company's objectives. And so with this information, it'll help the software with generating context about your organization, which is really important for helping it generate company objectives and policies, things like that. And so that brings us to the next step, which is filling out the organization context. So you can find context up here under governance. So we're going to click on that. Um, yeah, and so once you fill out those files, you'll see this organization context analyzer. So you want to click this. I've already done it, but it'll just take a couple seconds and then it'll help you with generating suggestions. And so those suggestions, you can find them here. So if I click edit, then it brings us to the edit page. And so, for example, organization mission statement, well, you might know that for your organization, but if you click this little star here, it'll give you a nice little hint. And so this can help you just get ideas, avoid writer's block, helps you get through the process a lot faster than normal. So if I hit autofill here, then it shows up in the box and I can just click save. And so you can do the same, have these little suggestions for all the information about your organization's context. And the more files that you upload, like I showed in the previous step, the more files that you upload here, the more accurate that these suggestions will be. So for example, internal stakeholders, board of directors, management team, employees, that looks good. And this suggestion is based off of those documents. Yeah, and so you can also generate some objectives. So if I hit this little star, then yeah, support community economic development and capacity building. That looks good. So I'll add it as an objective. I'll add this one too. I'll add this one as well. And yeah, it just gets these objectives for you. And then keep scrolling down, and there's a balanced scorecard. So I can hit the little suggestion here. Oh, there's not enough information to generate that. So with more information you upload, the better suggestions I'll be. So that's this step, is organization context. Next up is doing the departments. So now that we have our organization's context, now we want to define how our organization's departments look. And so I have this member here, Jennifer Roden. She's our very first member in our organization. We also have software assets, hardware assets, and virtual assets. So I'll go over these different types of assets in a little bit. Right now, I want to focus on organization members. So I have this organization member, but if I want to add some more, then I will go down to organization and I'll go down to users, and I will invite/add members. So I'll click here. And so say I want to add another person. So Robert Spencer, and his email address is here. Let's say he's an officer, he's a full-time employee, and we'll give him the administrator role. So these roles are based on permissions within Maple GRC. If you're an administrator, then you're allowed to edit all of the organization context and edit policies, all of that, whereas employees are only able to view training videos. So we'll give him administrator rights and hit save. All right, so now that we have Robert here as an employee, then we want to go back to departments, and he's not in this department yet, so we want to edit the department and add him here. So we'll go to people, and then we'll add a member. We'll add a member from an organization. So Robert, and then direct manager will be Jennifer, and then job functions, he's in operations. So this is how this is the process of adding people to your department. So now we'll go back to the the department page. So that's here. And so now we want to go into our asset inventory. So that's software assets, hardware assets, and virtual assets. So you can find that under organization and asset inventory. So right now under software assets, we only have Maple GRC. We'll say for this example that Queensville Corp is using Google Workspace. So I'll add a software asset here and I'll type in Google Workspace. We'll say that they're using Google Workspace Business Standard. And so here is the configuration page. So when you're adding any type of asset, then you'll see a page like this. It'll say who is the technical owner. We'll assign that to Jennifer. Does Google Workspace allow automatic patching, backups, multi-factor authentication, and is it critical? Well, yes, there is automatic patching for this company. It is a critical asset for them. Their Google Workspace will say is managed by Jennifer, and they do have confidential info stored. And in terms of data ownership, it is shared. And then it is restricted data because it's private. They may have customer information on here as well as organization information, which is why the data ownership is shared. So it is restricted data. And then what type of confidential info is stored? Well, there's probably personal identifiable information, intellectual property, trade secret, financial information, IT security information, and then data location is Canada. And then hit save. Yeah, and then it just adds Google Workspace as a software asset. And so you can do the same process for hardware assets. So this would be any type of phones or computers or printers that you have in your organization. You would list them here. And then virtual assets would be, for example, your company's social media accounts or your website. Yeah, so then next up, now that we have our software assets, and also just be sure to define a department for your asset, then now we'll go down into standards and regulations. So this organization is going for their CyberSecure Canada certification. So we want to add that as a standard. So standard, we want CyberSecure Canada level 1. We'll set Jennifer to own it, hit save, and that adds it here. Then we also want CyberSecure Canada level 2 and Jennifer as well, hit save. And so now that we have these, now that we've defined what standards we're complying with, then the next step is to generate some policies. So this is the policy menu here. So we'll start with going to our risk management policy. And so when we first have this policy, then we want to edit it. And so you'll notice this policy suggestions. And so again, like the context page, then this will be looking at the files that you've uploaded to Maple in order to generate policy suggestions. So I've already analyzed it, but you can click this button here and it'll analyze. I'll show you. So I'll have this little progress bar, and you can refresh. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it'll give you these yellow stars that you can click on to get suggestions. So, for example, policy summary. Then it has this nice policy summary that it's generated for us based on the information about that it knows about our organization. And we'll just scroll down uh, to requirements. So we'll generate some requirements here. Looks good. I will autofill all of these to add them to my policy. And so we have that here, and just be sure to save each one. Right, and we'll scroll up to the top. Okay, and then now that we have those requirements filled out, and of course, when you do this, you'll want to save and fill out the rest of these boxes. But for this demonstration, I'll just generate that. So now we want to generate the policy document. All right, so policy document is now successfully generated. Now we want to go to the policy manager. And so here it will show us um, our downloaded policy. So what we can do is we can preview the policy. And so what this does is it will save the policy. And so we can open that and view it. There we go. And so here are all the requirements that we generated in a nice PDF view. That looks great. And so now that we've reviewed that policy, now we can assign a reviewer to the policy. So we will send this to Jennifer and send her a notification email and hit save. And so then next, once Jennifer is reviews the policy, she'll get an email to her email box, and then she can activate and circulate the policy. And so once you have it reviewed, then you can choose which members in the organization will receive that policy, and then they'll be able to see it and sign off on it. And so once that happens, then you can go to the policy report. And so with this policy report, once it's done circulating and everybody has saw, or once it's done circulating, then it'll generate this report, and it will show you who signed the policy and who has not signed the policy. So that way you can view that and then send reminder emails to employees that have not signed the policy yet. Yeah, so next step is the procedures. So now that we have our policies, we know what standard we're going for. Like we're going for the CyberSecure Canada. So now we want to generate procedures. And so what this will do is it looks at our assets that we have in our organization. So we have Google Workspace, like we defined before, and it knows that we're going for our CyberSecure Canada certification. So it's generated some work instructions based off of those compliance standards. And so what this does is all of these are different documents that will have different instructions for configurations of Google Workspace and other assets once you define them. So if we go here, it has this nice Google document with instructions on where to go, what to enable, and you can go through these. And then there's also this nice progress bar, so you can say, is this procedure in progress? So we'll say that it's in progress right now. We can assign it to somebody. So we'll say that, let's say Robert is in charge of implementing this procedure. And we can also give him a due date. And then as you're going through these procedures, you'll also want to upload evidence that these procedures have been completed. So you just go to add new package, you can name it, you can add a description, you can choose a file from your computer. So that'll be a screenshot of your screen. Say that you're implementing logging and monitoring. You want to show evidence that the logs are actually being collected. So maybe you'll show a screen of your Google Workspace log menu, and make sure to include the clock so that way the time and date is shown. So that way auditors can look at that very easily and say, okay, yes, this person has implemented the logging and monitoring in their Google Workspace, and that is good. Um, yeah, so next up, um, after procedures, you'll want to go do user training. So you can go here and click on general training. And so on Maple GRC, we have a bunch of training modules. And so you can sign employees up to complete these training modules. So, for example, phishing and awareness training. If I click enroll, then it shows a nice video. And once I watch the video, then I'm able to take a quiz to test my knowledge on the video. And so what you can do is you can send notification emails to your employees. So say I want Robert to do this training, then I can save that and it will give Robert an email telling him to go complete this training. And so once you assign people to do trainings, you can go down to the training report. And so this is a report of the trainings that every employee in the company has completed. So right now we can see that Jennifer and Robert have not completed their training because all of the training modules are still under pending training. But once they've completed these trainings, it'll move over to the left to say that they've completed it. Uh, all right. And then next up, the next step is to go to vendor assessment. So here is a list of all of the vendors that you have in your organization, and this list is automatically generated based off of the assets that you list in the asset inventory, which is why Google Workspace shows up here. But you can also add a vendor here if it's not listed. And so this page, the purpose of this page is to upload vendor compliance certificates. So if they have their SOC 2 reports or their ISO certification, then they can upload or you can upload those certificates here. But let's say, for example, that your vendor doesn't have those certificates. Well, we have a nice template here for requesting those documents from your vendors. So you can go here to this template, and so this is an email template for requesting certificates from your vendors. But in the case that they don't have any certificates, then there is a vendor security questionnaire that they can fill out here. And so what this does is it has a bunch of questions that they can answer, and it will give us a good idea of how secure their practices are within their organization. Right. So then next, after vendor assessment, we go to risk scenarios. So here we have our different risk scenarios of different attacks and threats that can happen to an organization. So for now, let's go into insider threat. And so here it shows you an attack tree of different threats that can happen during an insider threat. So, for example, the attacker may scan for weaknesses in the system. They may use legitimate credentials that are still active, and they may use that to access sensitive data in systems. So all of these different boxes are represent different threats that can happen to an organization. And so obviously we want to mitigate these threats, or maybe accept them or transfer the risk or avoid them. So in this case, let's say we want to mitigate those risks. So we hit mitigate, And so it'll add all of these threats to our risk assessment page that I'll show you in a second here. So I'll hit proceed. All right. And then I'll go down to risk assessment. And now all of those threats that we saw in that tree before are now here. And so we can use this page as our risk assessment in order to um, identify the likelihood and the impact of these threats and conduct our overall risk assessment. And so if you scroll all the way to the right, then you can edit each individual risk and select the impact, select the likelihood. You can list controls. You can select an owner for this risk. Yeah, and you can hit save once you're done. And then after that, then you can, once you edit all of the risks, then you can export a risk assessment. So it'll put these risks into a nice table. Um, all right. And so next, we want to go down into roles and responsibilities. So after you conduct a risk assessment, you want to identify the different roles within your organization. So, for example, your cybersecurity leadership. What kind of cybersecurity leadership roles do you have within your organization? What kind of roles do you have within your cybersecurity team? Who is the CISO, and what kind of cybersecurity resources do you have in place within your organization? You can also upload files for your internal audit. So whenever you have an internal audit, you can upload the files here. If we go to edit, then there is a upload box where you can upload internal audit files. And so you can use internal audit files in order to um, inform your next audit and just learn more about your cybersecurity practices. And then the same for internal management review. Um, so next, once you fill out this roles and responsibilities uh, area, then you can go into incident management and then incident plan. And so here we have a general incident plan. So we can assign it to Jennifer. Yep. But if we want to create another incident plan, we hit create incident plan. We can choose from a template. So let's say malicious code. Hit save. Then we can upload files for our incident plan and select an owner for it, and then select evidence here. And then next, we want to go to our cyber risk strategy. And so here's an important page that is good to fill out. Is it you identify your different liabilities, risks, assets, and this helps you figure out your risk tolerance, risk appetite, financial risk capacity. And so this is important for your risk assessment. And so once you fill out this will help inform whether you want to mitigate, accept, or transfer your risks. And then next, we want to fill out our CyberSecure Canada risk assessment questionnaire. And so you can find that under assessments and then CyberSecure Canada assessment questionnaire. And so here are some questions about different basically they're questions about the cybersecurity practices within your organization. So for example, does your organization have an incident response plan? Well, if you do, then you hit yes. For example, I previously we showed the incident response plan here under incident management. So if you have an incident response plan here, then you can go there and download it and then upload it as evidence here. And so you can do that for all of the different questions here. For example, does your organization have cyber insurance? Well, there's actually an area in Maple where you can upload your cyber insurance. So under organization and then insurance, you can upload your insurance documents here and add that as evidence in that questionnaire. And so once we have all of these tasks done, every step that I've gone through in this video, then we can review everything in the compliance report. And so this page under compliance report, CyberSecure Canada audit, this page is basically like going through an internal audit of your system. And so here on the left, all of these clauses, these are clauses within CyberSecure Canada, and it has the requirement here. And then this box, we have the evidence within Maple and a link to that. So, for example, ensuring cybersecurity policy and objectives are established and aligned with the strategic direction of the organization. Well, we want to what the evidence here would be to check if the cybersecurity policies are valid within Maple GRC. So I can click this link, I can go here, I can check, is this policy signed by Jennifer, who's the CEO? Yes. Then okay, that's good. That is conformity. And so we can hit that as conformity. We can even upload evidence. So if we want to upload the policy, then we can upload that here. And yeah, and we can just go through this list. For example, training. An evidence for training would be to go to the training report and then identify have all the employees completed their training modules. Yes, then we can select conformity for all of these. And yeah, once you go through this list in this internal audit, then it allows you to identify areas where there's conformity and maybe there's some minor non-conformities, but it's okay. You can identify those gaps in order to improve on them later. And so, yeah, that is the steps of going through implementing CyberSecure Canada through Maple GRC. Thank you for listening.